Good evening. Welcome again to our program, Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess, and we have a petite but dynamic lady guest for you tonight, okay? And we'll get to her in just a moment, but first I'd like to thank our sponsors. Bank of the West, a brand new sponsor for Women to Women. We're so proud to have them. They are the familiar face here in the state of Nevada, hometown banks, and they will know your name if you become a customer. So think about banking up with the West. I'd also like to thank Villa Basque Deli and Cafe, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, and it is delicious. Visit right here in Carson City. And then we'd also like to thank Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, international health teas, and aged balsamic vinegar. So now let's turn to our very special guest, Dede Stevens. Dede, I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. You know, I mentioned that Dede is very petite, and she is, but she has a great mind, and she has a great way of getting points across. And Dede has an interesting background, both what she has been doing in the past and what she is doing now. And I think she represents in many ways the average American citizen, but who has decided to make some important changes with her life, and it can happen after we retire. So think about that for just a second. Dede, where did you grow up?
I grew up in South America, Colombia, South America, in a small town just outside of Bogota.
Wow. Is that because your parents were in some special division of mission work or of company work?
No, I was actually adopted. My mother, who was not married to my biological father,
okay.
Probably more out of cultural reasons, put me into an orphanage because she was not married to protect both of us.
Right.
So she put me in an orphanage. My mother, of the American people who adopted me, couldn't have children anymore, and they wanted a daughter, so they picked me out of an orphanage, and because of my blue eyes, I fit the bill.
Okay. You had to have been a cutie pie, a real cutie
I don't know. I was probably the loudest hollering one at that point.
Dede, so how long did you live in Colombia?
I was adopted at 13 months. They stayed in Colombia for a couple of years, and then they brought me to the United States for 3 years for the naturalization process. And then we returned to Venezuela for the next 12 years.
So you really do have a good experience of the South American continent.
Oh, yes.
All right. Let me just ask you this, because this is fascinating to me. Did you, of course, you were just an infant when you left Bogota, or just outside of Bogota, Colombia.
Correct.
But when you came back to Venezuela, you were a maturing young woman.
Well, I don't know how mature I was. I was not prepared as a teenager for the sociological expectations of teenagers in the era that I returned to.
So what you're saying is when you returned to Venezuela, to South America, but in the country of Venezuela, that was a challenge?
No, when I returned to Venezuela, I was only 3 years old.
Okay.
So I stayed there until I was 15 years old. Yes. And then when we came to the United States, that's where my speed bump in life took place.
All right. Now, when you were growing up in Venezuela all those years, were you going to an American school? Were you going to a Venezuelan school, a public school there in that country?
Well, the oil company provided schools for the American people that were employed by the oil company that my father worked for.
Okay.
And so it vacillated depending on where I lived in Venezuela. One school, we had 40, 50 people. Another school, we had 5 people in my class.
Okay.
One, I was the only student in my class.
So adaptability.
1 year, my mother taught me.
Okay. You were homeschooled.
And 1 year, I was at a evangelist missionary school.
Okay. Okay.
And that was my last school in South America. It was a school that the evangelist missionaries had established for their children to be able to get their education while their parents went out and did their missionary work.
Okay, question. This is kind of bringing us up to a current point, but Venezuela right now is in a political fight for its life, so to speak.
Yes.
Did you ever have to go through, as a young person growing up in Venezuela, any of those political turbulent times?
We only had one experience with any kind of political upheaval, and that was a couple of gentlemen drove through the oil camp shooting at the cops that were following them, and we kind of stood in our yard and watched them drive through, and they opened the gate so they could keep on keeping on.
Okay.
So consequently, that was all I ever witnessed in the way of upheaval. My father was very good friends with the political people with whom he had to deal with, and I won't say contend with, that he worked with and associated with. He had an excellent relationship with the government with whom he worked around and through. So I was blessed with having a father who had a great demeanor with the people he worked with. He was an outstanding example for me on how to work with people, not at them.
Very keen insight on that. Did your father also learn the Spanish language?
My father was really very adept at the language. His accent wasn't necessarily a Spanish accent.
Or a Venezuelan
okay.
accent.
Right. It was Spanish, Venezuelan. Actually, when they talk about Spanish, Venezuela is second to Colombia, which is only second to Spain. And Mexico falls way down there in the sad but true third level of...
Third world? Are you saying that?
Weak Spanish. Their Spanish has been compromised by sharing a border with us.
Okay.
So their people are more willing to learn English than they are to enhance their own native language.
Yes,
yes. They've twisted and converted it and made it into a Spanglish language. The closer to the border it is, the more Spanglish you speak.
Yes, yes. My husband, who is native-born Cuban, but raised in right outside of Madrid, and a Venezuelan personality for many years, has various accents, depending on the country that he was growing up in. And he, too, has a level of Spanish vocabulary that is much different than that of right close to the border with America and Mexico.
Yes.
Okay, so you've had a great international background in many respects. So when you returned to the United States, what bump or bumps in the road did you notice right off the bat?
I wasn't prepared for the social expectations of a teenage girl.
Those were what, do you think?
I didn't know how to dress like a teenage girl. To the standards. And I came into the state of Texas, which, when they say everything's big in Texas, they mean exactly what they say. It's big in Texas. I don't care what it is. And I was not prepared for the upper middle class mindset of the American teenage mentality.
And remember, too, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, at that time, Texas was a major oil and still is a major oil industry state. And the expectations and the amount of wealth, the amount of money, because so much of it flowed from the oil industry, really established in cities like Dallas and Houston and some of the others that culture of wealth, that culture of expectations. Would you correct me on that? Or
well, actually, I knew no oil business people in Texas. We came back to Fort Worth, and that's where my father's family was.
Okay.
And his brother-in-law, my uncle, was a pawn shop owner. So he had owned his pawn shop, and it's still Melvin's pawn shop to this day, even though my uncle is long gone. But he's well known by many, many, many people of that era to this day. His daughter's still coming across people who go, "You're Melvin's daughter?" So there's a deep relationship.
Yes.
So I had no exposure to oil people
per se. Okay.
When I came to the United States.
So you graduated from high school here in the United States?
Yes, I did.
All right. And did you choose to go on to another level of education?
I didn't choose. My mother directed, and to keep harmony in my life, I flowed with what made my mother happy.
That made my mother happy, too.
So I went to college in Pensacola, and then after a year and a half, or one semester, I can't remember now, she remarried, and because I didn't get along with her husband, they elected to send me off to school to Arizona, to Yuma, to a 2-year college where I did get my 2-year degree,
and that
which was a blessing.
What? That was in what?
Yuma. Oh, languages.
Languages,
Yes.
all right.
I majored in Spanish. I figured I could at least excel in something that I understood.
I'm sure you could excel in a lot of things. All right, so after college, what did you decide to do with the path of your life at that point?
Well, I didn't have any idea who or what I wanted to be.
And that's so true for so many of us, even after college, okay?
I went to Arizona State for 1 semester, but I was training as a jockey at the same time.
Horse?
Yes, horse jockey. And I would start classes at 7, get out at noon, and train from 1 o'clock until 10 o'clock at night. Well, I still hadn't gone home and studied yet. So I realized I wasn't giving the amount of effort towards my education that's required to excel as a student. So I called my mom and said, I understand the rules are if I don't go to school, you're no longer paying me to live. So I'm calling you to tell you that you don't need to send me any more money because I'm not going to school anymore.
I'm going to become a jockey?
Her response was, well, I hope you have a job. I said, I have a job, and I made sure I had one before I called you.
Yes. Okay, good girl, good girl.
But no, I didn't go as a jockey. The situation got a little odd, so I didn't want to pursue the situation.
All right, so where did you go then? After now you're on your own, and you've made it clear, and you were very honest with your parent, okay? You were very forthright and honest about the whole situation. Okay, now where do we take Miss Dede?
Well, I have a 2-year degree, and I'm making beds and cleaning toilets in a hotel, the Vagabond Hotel in Phoenix. Or in Tempe, excuse me. And it dawned on me one day, what am I doing? I have a 2-year degree and I'm cleaning toilets. So I went down to the Army National Guard of Arizona and brought my educational paperwork, and they brought a great big old book and set it down in front of me and said, pick what you want to be. And I went, oh, whoa, wow, cool. So in my youthful ignorance, I picked a task that would get me a civilian job. It wasn't really what I wanted, but I wanted job security. I was looking at job security as opposed to a future. So I went off to school, did my basic training and all my training, came back and had my 2-week summer camp that I had to give back to the Guard. And as I was doing that, my boss said, there's a job opening in the Army Guard, and you have all the basic education for it. Are you interested?
And we're not going to tell the audience exactly what happens. We're coming back at that point of time. Don't go away.
We always knew that when we had another baby, we would love it if I could stay home. The kids shape what we do. Everything's about them. So we had to make a lot of changes. Quick Balance is this really nice feature of the Bank of the West app. The more I check into my balance, the easier it is for me to stay on track. You don't even have to log in. Hold on tight. You're on call, 24/7. Every minute that the app saves me is a minute that I can spend with my family. And that means everything to me.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
Come to the Carson Horseshoe Club for fun and friendly service. Play your favorite games. Join our Players Club where you get cash for points plus food comps and enjoy casual dining in our Lucky Horse Grill. Get it all in the heart of downtown Carson City at the family-owned, local favorite Carson Horseshoe Club.
In business for over 5 years, Player Owned Music offers music lessons from the best quality music instructors in the area. We also offer band instrument rentals, guitar repair, and we have a recording studio on site. Call us at 885-PLAY.
How would you feel if a fire broke out in your home and you couldn't hear the smoke alarm? Especially if it's someone you love. Visit ReadyWasher.com to receive a smoke alarm that is specially designed for the deaf and hard of hearing. These smoke alarms send a wireless signal to a receiver that gives you strobe and vibration notification.
Local fire departments urge everyone to be prepared.
Visit ReadyWasher.com to help assure the safety of your family.
Welcome back to the second portion of Women to Women. Again, I'm Carol Paz, your hostess. We're here with Dede Stevens, and we're about to catch up with Dede on some really important questions, background work. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors of the second half, Dr. Kent Gabriel, noted and very fine plastic surgeon throughout the United States of America. And he lives right here in Carson City, and he practices right here in Carson City. A very dedicated man to his patients. His specialty is working with damaged hands. We'd also like to thank the Horseshoe Club right here in downtown Carson City in the historic part of the Capitol. And if you've never stepped into the Horseshoe Club, do so, because you step back into the history of the Old West. It's family owned, a local tradition here. And I'd also like to thank carsonnow.org. If there's anything going on in Carson City and the close environs, you go to carsonnow.org to find out what it is, where it is, and how it's happening, okay? So let's return to Dede. Dede. Okay, in the second half, I might have to kind of speed up some of my questions because you have a fascinating background. So you now are in the Nevada National Guard?
Nevada Army. I started in the Arizona National Guard is where I started.
Okay. And then worked your way into?
Then I moved from Arizona to Nevada, and they give you so much time to re-up so that you don't have a break in service. So I immediately came down to Carson City, joined the 222nd Maintenance Company in 1977.
So primarily, when you were here in Nevada, what were your responsibilities in the military?
I started in the supply room for the 150th Maintenance Company, and eventually, well, I worked in bars and I worked at the casinos for probably a 9-month span, and then my boss from Arizona contacted a gentleman here who worked in the Army Guard for Nevada, because he'd seen a job advertisement and told him that I was already prepared for that job. Okay. If he was interested, contact me. So it turned out I was hired by the Army National Guard of Nevada to do the job I used to do in Arizona.
All right.
So
I'm wondering, as a woman at that time in the military, what kind of challenges were you up against? Did you see yourself?
I didn't see a challenge for myself so much, because as a young girl, I was around boys most of my life. So I was raised by boy mentality. Okay. So joining an organization that's all men was just a mature version of the boys that I grew up with. So I didn't really feel I had any adjustments to make. Okay, and sometimes in today's culture here in the United States, as well as in the military culture of recent times, we know that women sometimes do face serious challenges. Yes. All right? But you didn't have that situation that you had to deal with. I didn't. If I did, I didn't notice them because I didn't give them credit. I didn't give them room to make an issue with me. Good. I don't really take too many things personally unless they're directed at me personally. So unless you take straight aim at me, it's probably just going to bypass me and you've still missed your point. And I have another question here. Because the military traditionally has been male-oriented, as a female working with men, right alongside men, what is the best approach to take when working with men? What do you learn from them in terms of their psyche that allowed you to work very comfortably
You're a female, and you think you're wired female, but how is it that you got along so well with male servicemen?
Well, I learned that men listen a lot, and I learned to listen better. I also realized that the men who'd never worked with women, I had a classmate at the Sergeant Major's Academy ask me if I had any pointers on how he would work with women in the military, because he never had any women in his organization because it was a male-driven type unit and environment. And I said, well, the only thing I could suggest, and I'm not a good person to ask this of because you guys have molded me to be the person that I am, so I don't take personally the way you conduct yourselves or the languages that you use. It's just part of the fabric of our communication, so I don't take what you say personal, but women who aren't exposed to it probably would. So I would say, how would you want a man to treat your mother, your wife, your daughter, your sister? That's how I would think you would want to treat any female you do not know. And he said, wow, I never looked at it that way, but that would make sense, and I will use that as my frame of reference.
It was a good guide.
It was an excellent guide for him to ask me.
Yes, yes. All right, so how many years did you serve in the military?
26 years.
All here in the States?
All here, all but 2 years.
Okay, and where were those other 2 years spent?
Arizona.
All right, so you were basically here in the United States the majority of your time?
Oh, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
And you retired how long ago?
In 2000.
Now,
but I had the opportunity to travel to Europe. I went to Japan, Italy, Germany, and all over the United States.
Okay, so you definitely have. You came from an international background, and you wound up getting even more of it. Okay,
yes.
Through the military. Would you recommend the military for women?
I would recommend the military for a young lady who is confident in herself and is not looking. And I don't want this to come across incorrectly. Don't go looking for a husband in the military. Go in the military because you have a goal you want to reach. You have expectations for yourself. If you're going there to meet a husband, you're going to get derailed quickly because your priorities are not going to be where they need to be. Right. And your focus is not going to be on what it should be, and that's doing your job.
That's right.
And men have they're real patient with you when you're new on the block, but they want to know that you're going to be able to handle the job they just handed to you, and that they're not going to have to babysit you. Men don't like babysitting.
I think that's true. I think that's true. All right. So since your retirement in 2000, how has your life changed?
My life has changed in such a manner that it took me until I was 60 to realize that.
Do I still need to salute you in any way?
Oh, no, never.
Okay. All right.
Never. I knew who Christ was, but I didn't have a significant relationship with him before. But when I had time to realize I still have a life to live and I need to make it a productive life, by the grace of God, I was in the military because I needed adult supervision all of my life, and I considered the military adult supervision for adults because they helped me stay on par, on track, shooting for goals, learning how to make and achieving goals.
And you think that is what the military really developed in you, is a protective guiding program?
It helped me learn how to set goals and how to assess situations, how to realize that changes need to be made, how to look at the world a little more, I don't know if pragmatic is the right word, but it seems to be the word that comes to mind.
Okay.
So when I realized that I knew who Christ was, but I didn't have a meaningful relationship with him, it meant more to me to work on that than anything else.
I know that you are actively involved in many people's lives through service, serving as a deacon.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How has that changed you? How has that given you confidence, or how has that made a difference in other people's lives, do you think?
Well, I don't know if it's made a difference in other people's lives as much as it's made a difference in my life, to be able to be less selfish and more out there for others.
Is pragmatism a part of that endeavor?
I'm sure it probably is. It probably keeps me on track. It probably is another milestone in my goal to be of service to my Father. And so consequently, I have made it a concerted effort to learn what it is to be one of children of God, one of God's children.
Did you have brothers or sisters at all?
I do have a brother.
Is he older or younger?
He is older. He's 3 years older.
Okay. What kind of a relationship in childhood or in teenhood or even after you reach adult life has this been with your brother? Does he respect that military service that you've put in?
Well, my brother was a Marine, so he kind of thinks we're kind of weenies as Army guys, you know, but that's okay. He admired the fact that I stood fast and did my service, and he respects me and I respect him, and he's been the greatest brother I've ever been blessed to have. He was a mean big brother when I was a little girl, but he also helped me understand how boys are and how men can be. So he was a great trainer.
So that was part of that childhood background that when you were talking about, you were raised a lot by boys. You were in the environment of males, of men.
Yes.
And he gave you some pretty good tips.
Oh, yeah.
And behaviors on how to live within a military life.
How to put up with them on occasions, yes.
Okay. Do you have any future endeavors that you would like to share with us that could make a difference again? Where do you see your life going?
I just want to make sure that whatever I do, I ask the Lord to lead me in whatever direction I take. So I don't take any direction lightly anymore. So my goal is to serve the Lord the rest of the days of my life.
When you say that you don't want to do things lightly anymore, that you want to have kind of mental documented reasons as to why you're heading in that direction, where do you think, when you look back, that there are lessons that you've learned that have helped bring you or put you on a different path than what you were on in younger days? Can you look back and say, okay, I'm glad that happened, or glad that that didn't happen, because it could have made a different Dede Stevens today than what there is?
Well, I truly believe that God had me in His hands from the day I was born. He protected me from living in an orphanage all my life. He protected me through my adoption. He blessed me with a wonderful set of parents. He blessed me with a brother that stood by me after I lost my parents. And the value of love, as I've learned to understand what it means to be loved and to love, I just want to be able to be there for people who may not be as fortunate as I have been in my life. So I feel my life has been a bundle of gifts.
Okay. And we as viewers or as listeners can also see where there have been mighty challenges.
Oh, sure.
Growing up in an orphanage is a test of courage and focus and determination in many,
well,
many
as an
ways.
infant, you just scream for milk.
Okay, we're glad that you screamed loud enough to be a guest with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And we will be back next week with a very special lady. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening. Good night.
Night.
Pets of the Homeless is a non-profit, all-volunteer organization that provides pet food and veterinary care to the homeless and less fortunate in local communities.
With donations from the public, we're able to provide homeless shelters with crates, bowls, cleaning materials, so that homeless with pets can come into homeless shelters and get the services that they need to get out of homelessness.
A fire-adapted community is prepared to survive a wildfire with little or no firefighter assistance. To help prevent ignition by embers, remove dead and dying plants from around your home. Be sure to remove low-hanging branches and the flammable plants underneath your trees, also known as ladder fuels. Non-flammable plants and pathways create separation and help prevent fire from spreading to your home. Make it lean, clean, and green.
Visit livingwithfire.info for more tips to save your home.